What's up, guys? It's the Daywalker Reporter here once again. Just here chilling in the beauty of nature. Here to record a video. Now, shout out to Satsuki the Savage. A channel I have a lot of respect for. Dude knows his stuff. I'm making this video real quick for two reasons. One, I'm going to talk about this toxicity going on within, the Game of Thrones fandom. Maybe not even just the Game of Thrones fandom, but just different fandoms that me and him share, like the One Piece fandom, and just to talk about like my two major issues are the fact that people just want to silence other people with opposing opinions, and the fact that there's this notion of entitlement within different communities where they feel as though you can't dislike something. And whenever you dislike something, you always have to have a reason as to why you dislike it. Like, you can't just not like something just for not liking something. Now, let me tell you something. Everybody has a reason for disliking something. Everyone does. It's just some people may not be as good as communicating as to why they might dislike it in comparison to others. For example, if somebody doesn't like Game of Thrones, and it's a show by consensus is a good show, most people really like this show, everybody, you'll have this situation where groups of people are just out to get this person, even just for having an opinion that's different. And they may not be able to explain why they might not like the show, or their explanation may not be as justified as you might want it to be, but that doesn't delegitimize their point. For example, if someone says, I don't like Game of Thrones because I'm not really into like watching shows about politics, and I'm not really into watching fantasy. I'm not really a fantasy person. You should it's okay to just accept that and be like, okay, this person has a reason as to why they might not like it, And also with One Piece, with the recent development with One Piece, everybody has different opinions on what's going on. I, for one, am not really bothered by certain things that are going on. Satsuki is. And the thing about, and I'm not going to say exactly what's going on because I don't want to spoil anybody who might be watching this video who's a big fan of One Piece. I want to say that personally, I think the current arc is really good. People have different opinions, and there are detractors from the arc, and I can respect that. I can respect the different opinions because I believe that each and every opinion has its own validation, and some people are better at communicating their validation than other people are communicating their validations. But what my problem is when you have just this large group of people that will just come after Satsuki and just basically send a lynch mob after the dude, after he literally was just sitting back here and saying that there are things within the story that he may not like. There are things that bother him. There are story elements that may not that even if they make sense, like there are some times when even if story moments even make sense, that doesn't mean you have to like it. Just like there's a lot of things in Dragon Ball Z that I could state that I have an issue with, but other people will consistently give you these retcons and these explanations for things, right? And it can make the most sense. Like, you can keep explaining it to the point till you're blue in the face to the fact that it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna be forced to just like it out of nowhere. That doesn't mean I'm just gonna think that this whole story element is just amazing, like the whole future Trunks stuff. Like, people will explain blue in their face about how the future Trunks stuff makes sense. But to me personally, there's a lot of things within that entire thing that doesn't make any sense. Like, for one, the simple fact that Trunks could have stayed. Like it was established that everything that he does in that current timeline wouldn't affect the future at all. Like, it wouldn't affect his timeline, right? And he wasn't strong enough to fight against the androids at all. Like, he wasn't strong enough to fight against them. And so why did he go back? Like, why was there a necessity for him to go back to the future time when he could have just trained for another 3 years for the androids to come back? And then when the androids come back, he'll be in full form, strong enough to fight them. Even if, like, Goku couldn't fight them. He could have hopped into the hyperbolic time chamber and trained for those 3 years and been able to beat the androids like super easily. And there was really nothing holding him back from doing that other than the fact that, I'm worried about them killing all the people in the future. when there was nothing you would have been able to do to protect the people in the future to begin with. So it's like, what's the point of you even doing that? So like stuff like that, you know, it doesn't like, it's a plot hole that doesn't make sense to me, but I still enjoy Dragon Ball Z, and there are people who still really like the series, and they're not stupid for enjoying it. It's just, you know, difference and variance in opinion, and I want to be respected for my opinion, just like other people want to be respected for their opinion. That's all there is to it, okay? It's just about respecting people and considering the fact that everybody has a different opinion. Like, and I'm going to quote a channel called Digibro right now. I don't 100% like his channel across the board, but there are some things he says in some of his videos that I can't agree with the whole idea that there is no objectively good in art. Like, I agree with that. Like, there's no way that you can judge that art is objectively good, because how can you judge that metric based in like scientific like, it makes no logical sense. And he goes into to explain the fact that, like, a lot of decisions on what it is for something to be good is based on, like, you know, if like at first, like, for example, he stated like the whole theory of parallel universes and how, like, we as humans can only understand and perceive certain things. Like, we can only perceive certain spectrums of light, and as we progress in technology, we're able to perceive new spectrums of light. But even those, like, technologies can only perceive certain things. So we have no way of really understanding and perceiving objective truth, right? We can't do that. Now he posed the idea of functional truth, and I'll link the video in the description below, but like he posed the idea of functional truth and how there are things that we can say that are functionally there. Like, for example, I have a hand or I have an arm or something like that, or there's trees around us based off of what we can observe with our five senses and stuff like that. But there's no metric to judging whether or not something is good or bad. You know, there is no metric. All that stuff is based on personal opinion, and all those personal opinions are based off of your personal experiences and what shaped you as a person and your standards as a person. So there's no way that you can be able to just be so quick to just delegitimize another person when there's no real metric to stating your perspective as being the standard. Like, you really can't do that. Like, it may be like a widely held subjective opinion where you have a lot of people who agree with your same point, and that doesn't mean that it's objectively good or bad. It just means that there are more people who like it in comparison to you. And if you have a different opinion, then, like he said in the video, he said that consensus change, that viewpoint changes, and you have a whole new arena that is open to you. You have a whole new situation in which, like, you can change consensus. You can change the general populace's opinion about things just as much as you do enough research, and if you care enough to change the general populace's opinion, you know? But yeah, I basically went on this big tangent to say that leave Satsuki alone, okay? If he doesn't think Daenerys Targaryen is the best character in the entirety of Game of Thrones, that does not mean that he is automatically delegitimized, or you shouldn't take his list seriously because he doesn't think Daenerys is the best character. Like, I like Daenerys, but I can state so many issues I have with Daenerys when it goes to her logical fallacies involving her political decisions and going into different, like, countries and just killing all the, like, I understand, like, I think that the whole killing all the slave master is beastly, okay? It's a good decision. But, like, she doesn't logically think about how she's going to establish infrastructure for her people to be able to continue to survive. And she doesn't really think about each decision that she makes. She just thinks about these jerk reactions to things going on around her. But it's like she doesn't actively think, oh, okay, so how am I going to be able to feed my people? Oh, okay, how am I going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to, like, make up the money to do things? And the reason why is because she has, like, these advantages. She has the dragons. The dragons are a very clear advantage that she has. If she didn't have the dragons, I don't think Daenerys would be able to have as much influence as that she has if she didn't have the dragons, you know? But I still enjoy her character. I enjoy, like, that moment when she basically took all the Unsullied, and she said she was speaking High Valyrian, and she basically was just a savage and just walked in and just took over everything. I think that's a really cool aspect of her character. Like, it's really cool. Like, she's very active in the story, but like, I can understand why he might put Tyrion as #1, or put Arya up in that list, or put Sansa up in that list, or put Jaime Lannister up in that list, because especially Jaime Lannister and Arya and Sansa, those are characters that actually develop throughout the story and change for the better, at least in the show. I haven't read the books, you know. Someone very important to me read the books. Okay, they read the books, and you know, there's a different perspective when it comes to reading the books in comparison to watching the show. So I can't take that into consideration, but just judging by the show alone, I can understand why he might like Arya. Arya's undergone so much development throughout the entire story, from the whole situation involving her dad dying, all the way up to the point to her going to the Faceless and losing her eyesight. And then you have the whole situation with Sansa starting out being kind of weak and kind of passive, to eventually becoming like just this really cool character. And then you have Jaime Lannister, his character development is one of my favorite things about Game of Thrones, because you know, he was kind of a jerk at the beginning, and then he lost his hand, and then after he lost his hand, he breaks down and he explains to Brienne the whole situation involving why he killed the king and all that sort of stuff. Amazing character development, you know? Tyrion Lannister, from the moment I saw Tyrion Lannister to every single plot thing that happened involving his character, to how empathetically written he is, to the fact that he's very logical, and he's one of the smartest characters in the whole series, if not the smartest character in the entire series. You know, and I can even understand Tywin, because Tywin's pretty smart and pretty beastly. So yeah, I mean, he has a good list in my opinion. Does that mean that people who disagree with him are wrong? No, like they can legitimately think Daenerys is the best character. But my point isn't that they are wrong. My point isn't the fact that their opinion is wrong. My point is the fact that the way that they're berating their opinion and stating, and this is just what I think that the only situation by which your opinion is delegitimized is when you act as though it's the standard, and you try to beat other people out of having a different perspective. And you try to basically create this situation in which people can't just simply exist differently, you know, just have a different perspective. People should be respected for their different perspectives. Major shout out to Satsuki the Savage. This is my protection video for him. He shouldn't be getting no hate. People need to leave this dude alone. He may not like current events that are going on in One Piece, but that's just his opinion, okay? And his opinion is valid for his reasons, and he can explain his opinion, and that opinion, I feel, should be respected. Because just because it doesn't fall into the guise of consensus doesn't mean it needs to be rejected. And who knows, if enough people have that opinion, maybe it could change the tides of the story into a better direction, because editors and reader surveys do impact the story in some way, you know. And and even if it doesn't, it'll at least you'll have a variance in the history of when people look back at One Piece and be like, okay, well, it's not perfect, but a part of it, the reason why it's so good is because it has imperfections, and how Oda works around those imperfections, and that's what matters. So yeah, that's it for today. I'm really just gonna probably just do a couple vlog videos before I do an actual organized video. Tell me what you think about this format of video. It's just kind of chill. I'm just outside, just sitting around, talking about life and things in general. Peace out. Daywalker reported.